What are we going to talk about today? The 257 Roberts, the sleeping slayer of the deer world. A mild-mannered, capable quarter bore. Hello, gunfighters. Welcome to Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, tactics, ballistics, cartridges, the right way with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. My voice may sound a little bit off, a little sick. Went back east for my sister's wedding. I love my sister, but I consider that area a wretched hive of scum and villainy, and I got sick when I got back. Now, correlation is not causation, and the show must go on. Also, correlation is not causation. I got comments of, take the bio out of the beginning, your bio, and put it in the show notes. So I've been doing that. And I have seen a significant drop-off in patrons. So, I'm not going to put it in this episode. It's going to be in the show notes still, but correlation is not causation, but definitely didn't help. So check out the bio in the show notes if you want to support the show. If you're a regular listener, you think you get like $5 a month of value out of this show, out of the podcast, consider stepping up and becoming a patron. Not just to financially support the podcast, but it's a cool community of guys helping each other. It's like the old golden era of forums before everybody started picking on each other. Like where it's a good group of guys trying to help other really good guys. I'm blessed to be a part of it. There's a lot of insider-only content that comes out on Patreon. Anyway, check out Patreon. Link in the show notes. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Let's get into the 257 Roberts. I guess I should get into the saga of how this episode came to be. I was vaguely familiar with the 257 Roberts. The 25 Creedmoor just came out. And I've always liked the quarter bores, the 25 calibers, because I thought they had a sweet spot. I think for deer, and we're primarily deer hunters in America. We hunt other things. I love to hunt elk. Last week I was out doing spring bear, but I think primarily as hunters in America, more than anything else, we hunt deer. I think one of the sweet spots for deer hunting is that 100 to 130 grain bullet at modern rifle velocity, say 2,500 to 3,000 feet a second, in that 500 foot range, in that 30 grain weight. Anything in there, generally, if you don't make a ridiculous choice with bullets, is a fantastic deer hammer. You obviously can go heavier. There's another one with a 308, but I think, honestly, 308 is a little bit more than you need for deer. The other part of this, maybe you care, maybe you don't. I'm going to ramble on for a minute anyway. Skip forward a few minutes if you don't want to hear it. But one of the rifles I've taken the most big game with is an old, cheap Youth Model 243, because I came out to the Mountain West a long time ago, and it was at Walmart, and it was affordable. I needed a light, handy rifle. I had a heavier 308, but I figured, let me get a light, handy mountain rifle so I can hike up and down these mountains and cover more ground. And I did, and I've killed a lot of stuff with that gun. I don't even remember how many things I have carved in the stock of that gun, but it's a lot. My wife took her first big game animal. I was blessed to guide her on a sheep hunt. She took her first animal with that gun. That said, that gun's not a great gun. It's not that old Remington 700. It's not very accurate. It's not very reliable. What I had affordable, and it worked. If you can do, most guns will do. But I've thought about, since I've killed so many things with it, getting it rebarreled. I love the 243, and I might get it one day. Who knows what'll get it rebarreled in? But I thought, if I'm going to go the custom route and get a custom barrel on that old 700, why wouldn't I get something a little bit cooler, something that just isn't readily available? Because by the time you buy the barrel and the other stuff, you might as well just buy another gun sometimes. So why not get it into something a little different? And I was thinking, again, because of this grain weight thing that I talked about, making it a deer rifle and going somewhere in that weight range. And that generally means, for me, 6mm to 7mm, which is going to include your 24 calibers, your 25 calibers, your 6.5s, your 6.8s, like your 270s, and your 7mm. That's a really good sweet spot, anywhere in that genre. And that generally you can get bullets in those in 100 and a little over 100 to 130 grain. And I think, again, that's a sweet spot for deer. Well, the 22 Creedmoor came out, and I like quarter bores, and the thing about that gun is it's a short action. So I couldn't get it in a 25-06. 25-06 is America's classic quarter bore, but I couldn't get it in that because it's a short action gun. The 25 Creedmoor came out, and I love to reload, but I'm not currently set up for it because my wife and I have been living as nomads for a lot of years. One of the things we gave up was reloading so we could travel around the country. The 25 Creedmoor looks pretty good ballistically on paper, I'll be honest, but it's got these long, crazy, sleek target, crazy high BC bullets, of which I care little for. I don't want those. I don't want to see how high I can crank up the BC and how target I can get a bullet. I do have, several thousand-yard range I was just shooting on. Shooting still targets for fun, if that's your thing, that's fine, but that's not what I consider effective hunting. That's not how I like to hunt. I like to spot and stalk and still hunt. So, at least for right now, the only factory offerings in the 25 Creedmoor are those super long, high BC, long-range target bullets, of which I could care less about. Of course, I could reload if I got back into that and reload it with 110 to, let's say 85 to 110 grain bullets. It's a good sweet spot. 117 grain bullets is a classic 25 caliber. But I thought, is there something else that can do that job that is more readily available, that's kind of a shorter cartridge in a 25-06, that's kind of a turnkey solution? And I was vaguely familiar with the 257 Roberts. I've never owned a gun in 257 Roberts, unless one came through the store and I was like managing a gun store. I don't know if I've ever had my hands on a 257 Roberts. It's kind of ye olde quarter bore. But I looked into it and it was a pretty impressive cartridge. Enter today's episode. I will try and quote sources when I'm reading from them. This will be from the Hornady Reloading Manual. And some of this is going to be different because this was copyright in 2010. The 8th edition. I can't believe I've had this book since 2010. Anyway, got rid of the reloading stuff. Most of it. I kept a little bit of it because it was super expensive and small. But I kept the reloading manual. I reference it all the time. You've probably heard it referenced on this show. It's just kind of humbling that I've had it for 15 years. I reloaded way before I got this book, but just the fact that I've been looking in this book for 15 years. So this is on the 257 Roberts in the Hornady Reloading Manual, numero 8. For about 7 decades, now it would be about 8.5 decades if we adjust that for the time, the 257 Roberts has been performing accurately and effectively as a hunting cartridge suitable for everything from varmints to medium-sized game. It began its career as a wildcat development by Ned H. Roberts, a well-known writer and experimenter. Remington introduced the 257 Roberts as a commercial round in 1934. Though Remington's factory version differed in minor respects from Roberts' design, both are essentially the 7x57 Mauser, cased neck down to 25 caliber. Some cases currently produced are designated for plus P pressures in the 257 Roberts and have slightly less powder capacity. Segregate your brass by brand and develop loads accordingly. The appeal of the 257 Roberts arose from its versatility. Not only would it destroy chucks and coyotes at extended ranges, it still had the power and flat trajectory to be a dependable whitetail or antelope cartridge. Both Remington and Winchester revisited this dual-purpose concept when they produced their new 6mm in the 1950s. These developments subsequently diminished the popularity of the 257 Roberts. Some of the new powders and new rifles, such as the Ruger Model 77 and Remington Limited Edition Classic 700 and Plus P pressure limits, may spark new life into this solid performer. Caution: the following data is Plus P pressure in Plus P cases. The data should only be used in modern firearms designated for this cartridge. This is me stepping out of that. Yeah, I'm talking about modern rifles chambered in this. If you have like a Bubba Eye sporterized old Mauser that was, an old 1800 7x57 that somebody converted, probably don't use the plus pressure. If it's a modern gun, do your own research on that. And going into the data itself, and just to be fair, the Hornady Reloading Manual tends to be a bit conservative on the pressures and the powder charges. You might find some spicier caliente loads in other manuals or the Hodgdon website. But interestingly, it lists a 60 grain bullet, which is pretty cool. Didn't even know that was an option in a 25 caliber rifle, but it lists a 60 grain bullet at 3,800 feet a second. Prairie dogs, anybody? It lists a 75 grain bullet at 3,500 feet a second, and an 87 at 3,300 feet a second. That would be a decent deer bullet. I have killed a lot of deer in the 80-something-ish grain weight bullet range. I'm not going to read all these, but I will read the Barnes 90 grain solid copper, because the solid copper generally punches well above its weight class. It'll perform something that weighs, let's say, 20 to 30, maybe 50% more. You can argue with that, but in my opinion, that's about right. It lists the 90 grain bullet at 3,100. If we step up to a traditional 25 quarter bore, it's got several different bullets listed at 117 grain weight at 2,900 feet a second. If you remember what got me down this path in the first place, and all the animals I've seen shot and guided for and hunted and killed and culled, I think for deer size game, which would include mule deer, whitetail, antelope, Pacific blacktail, coos deer, whatever, anything in that weight range up to and including real big, Alberta, Saskatchewan whitetails. Anything in that range. 100 to 130 grain bullet does pretty well. 117 grain kind of being smack dab in the middle. 117 grain at 2,900. That is pretty legit. Now, how does that compare to, I would say, America's classic quarter bore, the 25-06? Well, that lists a 117 grain bullet at 3,100 feet a second. So it's a little bit more, right? It's 200 feet per second more with the same bullet weight in the same manual. It's a little bit more. It's also a long action cartridge. And I don't think there's much to do about that if you're getting a brand new rifle. Like, the added weight of the 5 rounds being long action versus short action is academic. And really, I would love to see somebody run a Mad Minute with like 2 Tikas or 2 Remington 700s, one in a long and one in a short, to see what the real difference is. I don't think you're going to notice it in the field. But again, if I'm looking at converting a short action, that's kind of out. But the 25-06 is a little bit spicier than the 257 Roberts. Now, since the 257 Roberts is based on the 7x57 Mauser, which itself is a great round, it's not a true short action, but I do think that it can be chambered in a Remington 700 short action. There's usually a little bit of wiggle room in there. It's not nearly as long as a 30-06, and you can usually do things with, dimensions to get them to feed, I think. So I think it would be definitely possible to chamber a 257 Roberts in a Remington 700 short action. I may or may not ever do that. There's a lot of other cartridges I would like to chamber that rifle in. But this is a really cool cartridge. I looked on Gunbroker today, and there was several really cool rifles. One that I think is beautiful is a Ruger International full-length Mannlicher style stock in a M77 in the 257 Roberts. Stainless steel, my favorite. It is gorgeous. There's a bunch of other rifles chambered in 257 Roberts, most of them being much older. Why might you want a 257 Roberts? Well, one, you may just inherit one or find a good deal on one at a gun show or something, or a buddy selling one, and it's a good cartridge. You might be, just in the mood for nostalgia. But here's where I think the rubber meets the road and where it really makes practical sense. If you want a mild-mannered, available off-the-shelf, really good hunting ammo, not target shooting ammo, really good hunting ammo off the shelf, in a mild-mannered quarter bore that's great for deer and deer-sized game, the 257 Roberts is still a viable option. I was surprised at how much ammo they actually made for it. I went on Midway USA, not a sponsor, but it's a good go-to place to see what's available. Maybe they'll have a box of, old Remington or Winchester 257 Roberts on there. Well, I was blown away. There's 8 results: Remington Core Lock, good proven hunting load, Hornady Superformance plus P, Nosler Trophy Grade plus P, Nosler Custom plus P, Nosler Custom Different Grain Weight plus P, Nosler Custom Different Load plus P, Winchester Super X plus P, and HSM 115 grain. 6 out of 8 of those are in stock right now. And you might decide to go with one load over another, but all those seem like really, really good hunting loads. This would not be my go-to to chamber an AR in, right? This would not be my go-to training rifle. Not something I would take to a tactical class or a scout rifle class. But if I just wanted a mild-mannered 25 caliber deer cartridge, kind of a sleeper, that 257 Roberts is still hanging in there. It still seems like a very good cartridge. I think a lot of hunters go through a similar life cycle in their hunting. I certainly have. When you're young, you're just excited to go hunting, and you hunt with whatever somebody lets you hunt with. Then a lot of us go through this magnum craze, more power, like the Tim the Toolman Taylor phase. Like, I gotta have more power, I gotta juice it up, more power. And we get something like that, some 300 Magnum or 7 Magnum or something, and we shoot deer with it, and we're like, well, that's kind of superfluous, more than I need. Then we start looking for well-balanced, mild-mannered cartridges that will do the job at the ranges we expect to ethically take game. Well, this would be a great cartridge for a new hunter if you were looking to get, especially if you had to know your audience, right? But like know the person you're trying to get into hunting. If they're really into older school history stuff, and a lot of young people actually are, a classic rifle and a classic cartridge like the 257 Roberts is really cool. Maybe they're the kind of kid that likes that. And he may go through a phase where he doesn't shoot it very much, when he's in the magnumitis phase. Once he settles down, he'll likely look at that old gun, if he hasn't sold it or pawned it or something, which happens, and look at it and think, wow, that's actually a really good, mild-mannered, mild recoiling, capable deer cartridge. And I think that's where the 257 Roberts really shines. With that, guys, let's start wrapping up this episode. I appreciate if you're a regular listener, and I really appreciate if you support the podcast. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.